This is what will happen if your husband or wife who owns the property you live in suddenly dies and you're not actually on the mortgage, which means you're not on the title ownership of the property of your late spouse. So the question is, what happens to the property now when there is no insurance, no payout to pay out the mortgage that's remaining, and you don't have the necessary income to service the loan? This urgent case came to me last week through TikTok, and I sort of had to drop a few cases just to work on this case because the lady is distraught. The scenario is we have a husband and a wife. Well, obviously the husband is deceased now, and they have a little 4-year-old child, and they have a house which they live in that's worth $1.5 million, and the home loan is about $400K owing. Now the timeline is 3 months ago, the partner which contacted me, the late husband, passed away. Condolences. Now for the last 10 years, this couple owned a restaurant in a certain nice suburb in Sydney. The husband is 100% directorship of the business. And about 7 years ago, they bought a house, which is this house, which is now worth $1.5 million, with the income used from the restaurant. Now, they did a really great job and paid down the loan to $400,000. But right now, with the late husband out of the picture, the wife, the client that contacted me with the child, wants to take ownership of this property. Obviously, I'm not the first person she saw. I'm usually the last resort for most people scrolling through TikTok. For the last 2 to 2.5 months, we'll say 3 months, she contacted her existing bank, which I won't name, but it's part of the Big Four. And they literally couldn't get her onto this property because the problem right now is they're saying she has no income at all, and she wasn't part of this restaurant because she isn't a director here. They haven't declined the deal. And as for most bankers that work in big banks, when it goes into the too hard basket, they delay and snooze and go, we'll get back to you. The only problem is for this lady here, she needs to pay out a lot of debts owing on this restaurant to keep it afloat. Not only she needs to take over this home loan and keep this property afloat, and also ensuring that the bank does not sell this property and a forced foreclosure, she wants to cash out a portion from this property because there's a lot of equity here, maybe around $100K, to pay out some debts that the late husband owed to keep this restaurant afloat. Now she came to me and I initially thought, hey, if the big banks can't help you, obviously I can't too. But then, not to pat myself on the back, because I get booked out for a reason. I mean, my calendar, I'm booked out for the next 5 weeks. I started digging into this case and started tapping into this 15 years noggin of experience and thinking outside the square, which differentiates me from a lot of people and brokers and bankers. I did a company asset extract on the PTY Ltd that owned this business, which the late husband was the director. And by the way, it only costs like 15 or 20 bucks to get this report. I found out in the historical data of this extract, 2 years ago, the husband actually nominated the wife as a secondary director. Now, a lot of you watching might say, she's dumb for not knowing that. Hey, the lady's distraught. She lost her partner for the last 20 years. Here's one interesting thing. Her husband still hold 100% shareholdings, and she had 0. And then I realized something. The accountant of the client fucked up. You see, when they do the probate, in legal terms, if you want to get technical, a deceased person has left and they would appoint an executor to apply for a grant of probate to legally transfer or sell the property. And the solicitor did that and the accountant was made aware of it. He did not transfer the ownership of the shareholdings of the husband, who now is deceased, to the wife. And this is why the Big Four bank, or the banker who probably has no experience, couldn't get the loan to bloody service. And to make this process very simple for this client who's very distressed and pretty much annoyed with the banker at the Big Four, I told her to go over her will, and she said there's no will. Okay, fine. Then, if no will, apply for the probate ASAP, which she did. After that, with the company that, the restaurant they owe, transfer the ownership ASAP, including the shareholdings. And don't get stressed if that bank, which is the Big Four, couldn't do it, because I, or most other brokers, have other 25 banks that can do it. I workshopped it and I have a few options available for her, which is non-banks, and we're going to do a refinance and restructure, and also a cash out to pay out the business debt. Now you might say, hey, the rates might be a little bit higher, but hey, For this lady, she just wants to not get kicked out of her property through a forced foreclosure. She wants to get out the cash out to pay for any outstanding business debt to keep the business running. And if the interest rate was like 0.5 to 0.7% higher, but then still the rates are still under 5%, hallelujah, who cares? Let's get it done. So guys, this is what a good broker does. And I'm not saying I'm good, I'm like experienced. You contact all stakeholders, solicitor, accountant, even speak to the existing bank, ask them why didn't it work. There's a bit of investigation going on to see why a deal doesn't work. And it's just a finer detail. For example, the ownership of the shares was not transferred properly by the accountant to the wife. That single detail unfolded a lot of stress for this particular client. And by the way, just today, I got her the loan and it's all approved. And I'm going to her restaurant next week to celebrate.